Hi, everyone. My name is Kaya Scott, and I am an Associate Director with the Nonprofit Finance Fund. I'm excited to be here with you to explore one of my favorite topics, partnerships and collaboration. My background is in community organizing and youth development, and I've had the pleasure of consulting with nonprofit organizations as they navigate, identify, and assess their strategic partnerships. It's been awesome to watch them advance their mission and continue to grow and serve in their communities through collaborative partnerships. It's my hope that as we go through this conversation, that you will reflect on your experience, your passion, your purpose, and hopefully think about ways that you can reassess or recalibrate some of the partnerships that you are currently engaged in. And maybe if you have the opportunity to explore new partnerships and collaborative efforts. At the Nonprofit Finance Fund, we are embarking on a journey to institute a new strategy that focuses on organizations who are serving in communities and leaders who are of color, serving in their communities specifically to support Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Here at NFF, we acknowledge that as we continue to grow organizationally and in the world that we are living in, it's important that we think differently about how we serve the social sector. We acknowledge that in our journey to become an anti-racist organization, that also means that central to our partnerships is acknowledging the Indigenous lands, the individuals, and the communities who have had their lands stolen and taken, and the broken treaties that exist and broken relationships that exist for us to be sitting and residing on the lands that we are on. And so as a part of our practice, we acknowledge the Indigenous communities, we acknowledge the individuals who were stewards and living and working on the lands that we now inhabit. And so today, in appreciation and gratitude, I join you from the territory of the Lenni Lenape people, also known as Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am grateful to be joining from the sovereign lands of the Lenni Lenape people who owned, loved, and stewarded this land. I am grateful to be calling out their name, and I invite you to share or consider visiting the link below to see what territory you currently reside on. The Nonprofit Finance Fund has a rich history, 4 decades old, but most recently, we've launched a journey to become an anti-racist organization. We are learning and growing and continuing to navigate how to create social good, but through equitable access to information, to wealth, and to break the cycles and systems that continue to keep Black led and serving organizations from achieving their highest and greatest use, but also their community's aspirations. So we are grateful that as we've continued to learn through this 3-year journey, that we commit to building a more equitable and just social sector that supports community-centered organizations that are led by and serving people of color, so that they have access to the financial resources, knowledge, and information needed to realize their community's aspirations. At NFF, we do 3 things. We provide loans to nonprofits. We provide financial consulting for both nonprofits and funders. And we also use our learning, our insight, and information to serve as advocates to ensure that there are better funding practices in the sector, better lending practices in the sector, and that we continue to strengthen the agencies and organizations who are doing social good and create less restrictive practices so that we can explore new ways to finance, to consult, and support community-centered organizations. Our goal today is to ensure that we provide some freedom and safe space and opportunity to have dialogue and conversation. And so if you are watching this webinar on your own, ask that you extend yourself some grace. Think about your experiences as we're going through the deck. Think about your perspectives and think about some of the ways that you'd like to deploy the strategies that we are going to explore. And if you are watching this as a team, I invite you to create opportunities where you press pause and speak freely and candidly. Give an opportunity for everyone to ask questions. Think about the respect and the expertise and the insight that is in the room. And hopefully you will create opportunities where the learning that happens here not only stays in this room, but gets shared widely through your organization and in the community that you serve. This session is part of a series of sessions. So I hope you've had the opportunity to listen to some of the previous webinars on operating in a changing world, being able to tell your financial story, cash flow planning, thinking about your money mission metrics, strategic budgeting and scenario planning, understanding the full cost of doing business and operating and advancing your mission, thinking about managing risk and opportunity. And today we'll be talking about partnership and collaboration. And finally, the workshop after this is centered on discussing strategies for board members to better serve their respective nonprofits and to build their knowledge in financial management and understanding their roles as stewards of the mission and the finances and governance of their organization. And that workshop is called Financial Leadership for Boards. Our goals today, as we continue to go through this webinar, are to really talk through collaboration. We're going to define it. We will assess what's necessary and needed for an organization to embark on successful collaborative relationships. We'll talk about how to do it, collaborative relationships effectively, how your organization achieves its goals as a result of the strategic relationships that you forge. And we'll spend some time looking at your readiness. So if you're already embarking on partnerships, are you doing it in a way that has the right people at the table? Are you thinking about it from a comprehensive manner based on the goals that you've assigned and set for yourself? And we'll also start to talk about, for people who are interested in becoming a collaborative partner or maybe starting a collaborative, what are some of the things that you should consider in order to build the right infrastructure? And then finally, we'll have some conversation about some of the challenges, financial considerations that we will need to explore to build a sustainable collaborative relationship. So as we enter into this conversation, there will also be points where I will pause for reflection and for you to consider some pieces of this conversation as you take it back to your communities and to the work that you are doing. So here's the first piece. What are potential benefits of collaboration? So think about that. What are the potential benefits of collaboration? I know as we think about collaborating with organizations, being clear about the benefits is so incredibly important because collaboration can be messy and it can be joyous and it can be frustrating and rewarding and great learning opportunities for all parties who are involved. But understanding and remembering your purpose, your why, your intention, the reason why you want to partner in the first place is incredibly important because it will inevitably get tricky. And the key to assessing that readiness is ensuring that you have a solid plan, that you are strategic in your approach, that you are clear about what you want to have happen as a result of your collaboration, and how you would like to sustain it. And so as we go through the components of this webinar, we will talk about all of those things, but essentially making sure that you have the right people at the table, the right support across sectors who all understand why they're there in the first place, who understand the mission and the outcomes that could occur as a result of your work is incredibly important. And having a why to anchor that conversation is the beginning of that process. And so I challenge you now to take a moment to think about what are the potential benefits of collaboration. Understanding your why is also an opportunity to check in with your partners who are around the table, check in internally as you're thinking about collaborating and considering these 2 points. What goal are you trying to achieve, and what collaborative structure is necessary to achieve that goal? I love this concept of form follows function. It's actually anchored in the 19th century for an architect named Louis Sullivan. And it's the mantra of how architects think about what they are designing and creating. What it essentially is suggesting is that the purpose of the building is where you start your design. And once you know your purpose, it helps you to determine the best approach and structure and form your building should take. So let's use that same analogy when we think about collaboration. Understanding the goal, what we're trying to achieve, is so important in ensuring that you have the correct structure for your collaboration so that you have clear goals from the very beginning that everyone understands and can address, that the function of why you are building your collaborative in the first place and the vision of why you are coming together and working together is clear to everyone, so that as your structure continues to evolve and unfold, you can ensure that it is creating the impact that you were hoping, that it lifts up and affirms your why, so why you're collaborating in the first place, and ultimately accomplishes the work that you were setting out to do. So let's talk about getting clear and why it's important to set these goals and build an infrastructure for your collaboration so that you can support success. McKinsey Company talks about the importance of having a framework, having an infrastructure that supports not just collaborative initiatives, but capacity within an organization in general. And so I'm challenging that as we continue to think about collaboration, we think about it and what capacity your organization has to sustain it, to grow, and to build. And so thinking about your capacity before we think about collaboration is essential because it creates an opportunity for us to build a solid foundation before we start to bring other people to the table. So let's start at the top of this triangle. We know that collaboration requires a solid opportunity for everyone to be on the same page, to be working together, having an understanding of the goals and the most appropriate structure. This pyramid really demonstrates the relationship between different elements of the work. It suggests that capacity building is a process. It suggests that organizational culture is the glue that binds everything together. And we know, and we'll get into this a little bit, that when we go to collaborate, we are also collaborating not on having an alignment in our mission and values and our goals and purpose, but our culture gets infused to some degree as well. And so understanding your organizational culture is valuable because you will also need to understand your partner's culture. And so at the top of this graphic, we see is the first point of building this strength or the capacity of our organization before we get started in our collaborative journey. is to think about the purpose and why we're coming together. So what are your goals? What are you hoping to achieve? What are your aspirations? And once we know that purpose and those goals, what are the strategies that are going to help you achieve those goals and aspirations? Do you have the right leadership and marketing in place? Do you have the skills necessary? And so once you know your strategies, what are the tools, the skills, techniques that you will need, those organizational skills? What's necessary for you to be able to accomplish those strategies and achieve your goals? And then finally, what infrastructure do you need to have in place to be able to deliver on what you are coming together to do? So for example, your human resource department, is it established in the way that's necessary? Do you have the right human capital, the right people sitting in the right seats within your organization to be able to move this initiative along? Do you have the right systems and infrastructure in place? So can you track the data? Are you able to track your expenses and your revenue for this particular work that you're looking to embark on? And then your organizational structure. So do you have the right people, again, sitting in the right seats? Do you have a board that is functional and providing the governance that's necessary? Do you have a development individual or someone who's looking to build the revenue and the resources necessary to sustain and support the work? Structure could look very differently depending on the size of your organization and the scope of your work. So none of this is a judgment. It is an opportunity to have a conversation and reflect and think about how your organization is evolving, emerging, showing up, what infrastructure is in place to support the work that you're ultimately able to do. And then finally, again, on the outside, in order to achieve your goals, in order to put the right strategies in place, in order to implement them well, in order to ensure that you have the right skills and abilities available and accessible to you, and that you have the right infrastructure in your systems, your culture helps to build and sustain that work. So we've talked about our why. We've talked about establishing goals and making sure that we have the right structure and form. So let's start thinking about what that form should be now that we know where we're going. So as an organization, and as we're embarking on this conversation for today's purposes, the terms collaboration and partnership are often used interchangeably. And while they both create opportunity for long-term relationship and mutual goals and decision-making, there are distinctions between the two. When we think about partnership for the purposes of this conversation, we're thinking about a cooperative relationship that's formed. It could potentially be formal, it could have contractual obligations, but basically it's about being clear about the rights and responsibilities of the parties who are involved. A collaboration does involve cooperation in which the parties may not be contractually bound, but there's a cooperative that is happening there where there's clarity around roles, responsibilities, and why people are coming together to accomplish a task. Whereas collaboration, again, involves cooperation. It could be long-term. It has a common goal. It could be formal and it could be informal. But the difference is the amount of integration that exists in order for both organizations, all parties, to be coming and working together. So wanted to make this distinction first before we moved along and continued our conversation about the structure and the form of collaboration. The structure and form is informed by your goals. It's informed by the strategies that you deploy. It's informed by what you are hoping to accomplish. It's formed by the organizational skills that you are looking for and that are needed to accomplish what you are hoping to accomplish. So collaboration, while it's a broad term, we acknowledge and recognize that there is a spectrum from very least connected, integrated work. So at the very far left, competition and coexisting. So the term is an opportunity to really think about, are we just doing things? Are we passing on referrals and information? Are we just sharing resources? Is there a systematic approach to how the work is happening, the way it looks, the connection between the agencies and organizations that are all coming together. From a communicative perspective, are the agencies just sharing information? Are they just sharing knowledge? And that's the extent of what collaboration looks like and feels like for all of the partners who are involved. Or are we getting to the place where organizations are starting to now integrate? Are they reflecting and thinking about the nature of their relationships and how they connect and partner together? Are they integrating their work? Are they talking and integrating their mission and their activities? Are they going beyond just sharing information, but they're coordinating their programs? Are they starting to think more deeply about their mission, their vision, their values? Are they sharing information and starting to build systems together and accomplish goals together and aligning their work and their outcomes? Are they starting to think about how do they fully integrate their planning, their work, their funding, and maybe even getting to a place where they're fully integrating and thinking about merging? So this whole idea around coordination, collaboration, and integration, the difference is to what degree organizations have started to form, merge, connect, integrate their activities. And we acknowledge and recognize that not all forms of collaboration or structures fit. And so this has to be an opportunity, a pause point for your organization to think and check in. If you're currently collaborating, where do those relationships fall on this structure? It's not a right or wrong, just an opportunity for you to reflect and think, is this the right structure to accomplish the goals that we set out to accomplish? And for the organizations who are looking to embark on some of these relationships, think about your goals again. Think about those aspirations. Think about those strategies that you may want to put in place. So to what degree do you need to share your revenue and your expenses? To what degree do you need to think about joint programming and operational ventures? To what degree do you need to consider how much you need to integrate and connect and collaborate in order for you to be able to accomplish what you set out to accomplish? And so for the purposes of today, we are going to spend some time talking about the more integrative portion of this continuum: cooperation, collaboration, and integration. And we will look at why nonprofits continue to collaborate and partner, what brings them together, and how to make those relationships healthy and productive. So why do nonprofits collaborate? And what are some of the reasons why they come together? I'm going to pose that question to you. This is a point of reflection again. Think about why your organization may be collaborating. And if you're considering collaborating, again, think about your why. We proposed that there are a few areas where nonprofits are thinking about looking to grow, expand, shift, adjust. And so here are a few of the reasons why we like to think about why nonprofits collaborate. For cost savings, we know nonprofit organizations are dealing with already stretched budgets, already stretched opportunities, and sometimes coming together creates efficiencies in time being spent accomplishing certain projects and initiatives. It could also yield money savings or dollar savings to accomplish the work. I have a client that does a workforce development program, and they partnered with another organization. So one organization did the job training, the other organization did GED and skills-based assessments. And so when they came together, it made it so much more robust for the client because they were able to have a one-stop shop opportunity to accomplish what they needed to accomplish to ultimately end up employable or being able to upscale their skills. Both organizations were able to save because they partnered and rented an office space together. Both organizations were able to save because they shared supplies and they only had to buy them once. Both organizations were able to save because they were able to also utilize similar equipment. They shared iPads. They were able to really think strategically about the client first and then back into the collaborative relationship. So that's an example of being able to save, but also collaborating with intention and purpose. I think that example also illuminates being able to expand and reach impact. So as you're thinking about your mission, as you're thinking about the vision and how you want to show up in the world, we are recognizing, unfortunately, that there is more need than we can provide support for. There's probably also populations and audiences that you're looking to connect with that maybe you don't necessarily have a relationship through your organization. And so partnering creates an opportunity where there's a steady flow of referrals and individuals that you have the pleasure of serving. Another reason why you would want to partner and collaborate that could also help to expand your reach and your impact is increasing your value proposition as an organization, individually, but then collectively with how you show up in the community. And so for the example that I provided, the workforce development program and the GED program coming together, they were able to make the case to not only provide that particular program in the community in one area of the county, but they then received a contract from the Department of Community Development to provide a similar program and a similar service in other parts of the county. So not only did that increase their visibility, their brand recognition, their value as an organization, so they also were able to demonstrate that they could increase impact, they could save dollars by operating in this manner, and it helped to really shift the organization as a significant player within the community. And then finally, to guard and mitigate against risk. So we know when opportunities are shared, when there's a chance to come together and collaborate, you get the opportunity to not just shoulder all the burden, shoulder all the human asset, time, talent, and treasure within your organization, but now you have multiple organizations who can share in the work, can allow for freedom and space and time to experiment and be innovative in the way that you think about your work. So knowing your why is incredibly important because the strategies that are associated with why you would partner to save dollars, why you would partner to expand, and why you would partner to mitigate risk may be slightly different. And so again, understanding your why helps you to put the right goals in place, the right strategies in place, the right structure in place to meet your needs. And so if you are currently in a collaborative relationship, I ask that you pause now and think, what is the why of why you are coming together to collaborate, and do the strategies that you are deploying right now align with that why? So we've talked about the benefits of collaborating. We've talked about form and function, so the structure of why you're coming together. We've defined partnership and collaboration. We've talked about the spectrum and the continuum of collaboration. So now let's hold the mirror up to ourselves and check in and see, are we ready to collaborate? So these next set of slides, whether you are currently in a collaboration or not, I am using these as an opportunity to press pause and take the temperature. This is your chance just to check in and see where you are, see where you're landing, see how these concepts land as you're considering being ready to achieve your collaborative aspirations. When we think about readiness, and you can hear readiness also as recalibrating. So if you're currently in a collaborative relationship, partnership, strategic partnership, do you want to check in around some of these things and see if there are adjustments that you need to make to continue to effectively operate and to do the work that you are doing? So we'll have a conversation just about knowledge. Do you have enough knowledge and information, skills and talents, access to them around the seat of your boardroom, around your table, in your community currently serving to accomplish your work? Have you built the right relationships? Are they solid? Are they full of trust? and we'll talk about opportunities to grow in those areas. We'll also talk about resources. So do you have the resources to invest in the way that you need to accomplish your work? And we'll have a conversation about risk. So can your organization sustain the work that you are embarking on and that you are starting to do? So let's take a moment and we'll revisit each of these. And again, as we're going through, I am suggesting, offering that you check in and ask yourself these questions. First, do you have enough knowledge? Do you have enough information? We know that it takes specific skills to partner. We know that people come with their own personalities and goals and circumstances. And so being able to explore and plan and think and be strategic is incredibly important. There's uncertainty when you go into collaboration. Ensuring that you're going in the right direction, it's important. That's why we started this conversation about being clear about our goals and our strategies and aspirations. Our partners and the individuals, the organizations that we're looking to work with, they may be having their own challenges within their organizations. And so doing our homework and having enough information about what's happening in their world matters, because again, that may also impact our collaborative structure. So as we think about having enough information and having enough knowledge, there may be gaps in what we know or what we think we know. And so taking the time to step back to ensure that we're asking the right questions, that we have access to the information that we need is really important. So being open and candid and having a strategic planning process. This does not mean that it needs to be something formal where you're paying a ton of money and you have consultants coming in, but are you just clear about your strategic priorities and why you are doing the work that you're doing? Is everyone clear? So it doesn't just stay with you and your organization if you are the shepherd or the backbone organization moving the work along. Is everyone clear about the strategic priorities and why you are coming together? Have you thought about the skills and the tools that are available to you? It could be internally, could be with your volunteers, could be with your staff. Are you clear about the knowledge and skills that you need to have access to do the work? And if you've done that work and you've done that assessment, do you need to bring anyone in that has more experience and information? So if there are gaps in expertise, is there a consultant? Is there a perspective that you're missing because you're working across sector and maybe you're not as familiar and you're operating in a new world? There's an opportunity there to bring in the right people, but there are nuances and complexities as you are building partnership and collaboration. And so having the right information at your fingertips, at your disposal, asking the right questions ensures that you are building the structure that's necessary to accomplish what you are hoping to accomplish. An example of some of these knowledge gaps may be around data. So we know it feels amazing to come together and to partner and to collaborate. And sometimes when we think about that, we often don't think about the data systems that are necessary to tell the story from the very beginning, to make sure that the right data points are being captured, that they are identified, that you are operating towards the right goals and tools and skills and information, and making sure that you are interpreting the data in the way that's necessary and needed, and that you have the right systems in place to capture it, to manage it, to analyze it, and to ensure that you can accomplish what you have set out to do. And so what you measure needs to be determined and identified and talked about. And are there compliance things that need to be considered, or partnership efforts that need to be considered as you're thinking about the systems that need to be in place? How are you capturing this data? How will you analyze it? How will you think about your service delivery and your billing and your data access? Who has access? Who are you sharing the data with, and for what purposes? These are all important pieces that you will need to investigate, you will need to explore. They will inform your infrastructure. They will inform how you choose and with whom you choose to collaborate. And so as you're thinking about your work, being clear about these points thinking about the impact that you are hoping to have, and what it will cost in order for you to put these systems in place is incredibly important. So here's the next reflection point. Have you built solid relationships? We know relationships and trust can be difficult. We know it's earned over time. We also know that organizations and agencies, either because of competition, because of scarcity and resources, sometimes there's mistrust, sometimes there's fear and uncertainty, sometimes change is a concern, and sometimes our emotional selves take over, and we forget to elevate and align and think about why we're doing the work we're doing in the way that we're doing it and showing up in the way that we need to show up. And so we think about, and I'm challenging you to think about, have you built the trust that's necessary and needed for your collaboration to emerge and evolve in the best way possible? Have you thought about and really called out and identified the fear that may be existing in the room as you're building relationship? The fear of change. Maybe your cultures are incompatible. Maybe your organization allows for shared decision-making. And so the executive director and your program staff and your administrative assistants all have equal weight in conversations. Maybe that's not the culture for a partner organization. And so have you negotiated how you want to communicate and talk and work together and share information? All of those things build a culture of trust and relationship and understanding. And transparency, being clear about that. A lot of these words that are existing right now on this screen, change, loss of control, culture, transparency, are all defined very different by agencies and organizations. And so even just getting clarity around that and people's feelings and ideas, challenging the mindsets of well, this is the way we've always done it. And really just thinking about what's the new pathway, the new approach, the new culture that you were hoping to explore and adjust and think about as you build this new collaborative relationship. So being thoughtful about this from the beginning helps you to mitigate some of the issues that may emerge. And part of that is really just starting with some of the organizations that you already have relationships with. Most nonprofits look to partner and collaborate where there is already some opportunity to connect, where maybe there's already relationships among staff. You've already seen each other work. There's already been a proven track record. So you've seen someone meet their word. You've seen someone be consistent. You've seen someone treat people the way you would want to treat them and the way your organization honors and values them. You've seen people show up in the community in a way that you would like to value and align. And so having awareness about the organization's work, working with your existing partners, giving staff and boards and volunteers an opportunity to spend time together and to connect really does help to move the collaborative process along, because they start to build trust and relationship and enjoy one another and find connections and find opportunity to partner and create support and to create and strengthen bonds that are necessary. We overlook often when we're in working professional relationships that we should probably also like the people that we're working with and enjoy spending time with them, because we'll be doing so for a while. And so you want to make sure that there is a relaxed environment and atmosphere where people can share their thoughts and ideas and their perspectives and bring their whole selves. When there is trust, when there's a relationship, when there is opportunity for shared values and alignment and shared aspirations, and everybody's working on the same page and there's clarity of roles, you can start to think about conflict in a way that is healthy and valuable, and opportunity for learning, so that when it's time to identify and align the gaps, you can deal with that early. When there are opportunities to really be clear or there's decisions that need to be made, you've already written the commitments down about how you maintain the trust that you're hoping to design and create. And you've already had some conversations just about ways to manage difficult discussions. You've talked about common ground. So you have a way to take the temperature. You have a way to level set conversations. You have a way to check in and memorialize those conversations and to hold one another accountable. So trust is incredibly important. Having the right people in the right seats at the right moment, guided by very thoughtful and strategic conversation, building trusted relationships, and writing it down and being clear about the work also helps you to build a thriving collaborative. And next is resources. We know resources are important. They're important for everything that we do. And that's time, it's your talent, and your treasure. So being thoughtful and respectful in your planning and being purposeful about that will also help you to explore the resources necessary to implement your collaboration. And we know sharing information about funding, sharing information about our opportunities for additional funding. We know in light of CEOs, executive directors, program staff wearing multiple hats, it's important to just honor people's time to ensure that the day-to-day operations of the organization are able to continue to grow and thrive and emerge in a way that keeps each organization healthy. And then collectively, two healthy organizations are able to make a significant difference in their community. And so as you're thinking about, again, another reflection point, resources to invest, do you have what you need? Do you have the right staff and board? Have they created time and capacity to be able to invest towards this work? Have you thought about the financial resources and costs necessary? We talked about this in the knowledge piece. Do you need to bring someone else in? Are you lacking in certain areas and you need to make sure that you're continuing to stay connected? And then for cost savings, have you thought about opportunities and ways? This was one of the reasons why people collaborate, being able to save costs. So are there opportunities for that to happen in the short term and maybe even in the future in the long term? And then finally, just really trying to ease and almost, I guess, use that trusting relationship that you've built. How do you ensure that people aren't fearful and thinking about not collaborating or sharing information fully because they think that funding will be pulled from their day-to-day operations, and so they're maybe hesitant about looking for additional revenue? How do you have those conversations candidly with one another, but then think about a strategy to generate the revenue that you need? And so some of the strategies to help ensure that you have the resources necessary to accomplish this work. Everything gets anchored in your aspirations, your goals, your mission, the alignment, and why you're coming together in the first place. That's why we started this conversation about the potential benefits and the why. Having your why allows you to really anchor a lot of these conversations, particularly with funders when you're looking to generate revenue. They're going to want to know why you're doing what you're doing. What are you hoping to accomplish when you all come together? And that you have the right people at the table with access to the information that's necessary for you to invest. So when we say resources, think time, staff time, capacity, think talent. Again, your people talent, your community talent, the talent within your organization, the talent that's coming together in your collective work, and treasure, your resources that you need to be invested. Your human assets will also help to shepherd a lot of this work along. It could be through a task force. It could be through your sharing of information and data and know-how, and ensuring that everything is just being communicated, that is documented, that you are talking it through, that you are planning and exploring, and ensuring that you have all of what you need to address the work. So let's talk about this final piece, which is risk. So we've talked about knowledge. We've talked about building trust. We've talked about resources. Let's talk about risk. So can your organization sustain the work? I often, when we have conversation about collaborative initiatives, this is probably one of the most important conversations that should be had from the very, very beginning. So once you've figured out your aspirations, your goals, why you're coming together, you've talked about the form and the function of what you think the collaborative needs to be. You've had a conversation about your strategies and what you're hoping to create. You've looked internally at your infrastructure and built the systems in place. You've assessed whether you have the right knowledge and skills at the table. You've had a conversation about the trusting relationships that currently exist, the new ones you may need to create to get everyone together. You've talked about the resources that are necessary and needed. You've also now started to explore, how do you make sure that this work continues? Are you going to need to make one-time investments, upfront investments? Do you have resources, cash, unrestricted dollars? Maybe it's just a conversation of, your assets. So if you are running a shared program, will you use your building as the meeting place? And if so, are there protocols that you need to put in place, things you may need to do differently or think about differently? Will that be wear and tear on your assets? So your fixed assets, your property, plant, and equipment, those things that could be your computers, it could be your iPads that you may be using. Again, it could be your physical plant, your building. So as you're building these new relationships, are there risks that you need to consider? Also, as you're thinking about risk, reputational risk. So some risk costs dollars, some risk may not cost dollars, but really being clear about the risk that may be associated is important. So we have here just the idea of having a strong financial perspective in thinking about your work and being flexible about the assets that you have access to. So those would be your cash, it could be your receivables, it could be, again, your building, your property, your equipment, the things that may be necessary for you to use to move the collaborative process and approach along. And then does your organization need to do anything different to access anything in order to forge a new partnership? So we talked about resources in the previous slide. Do you have everything that you need? Does your task force or your committee need to come together and think differently to ensure that everyone who needs to be encouraged, supported, potentially compensated as you're thinking about your collaborative relationship and the resources necessary to accomplish your programs and the services that you are hoping to deploy within your communities? And if resources are needed, being clear about what those are and whether they're one-time or whether they are annual expenses. And this is a conversation that you will have internally. Challenge you again, another reflection point to have this conversation and think about it if you are looking to create new partnerships. And even if you are currently in a partnership where there are spaces and places where you wished, darn, I should have had this conversation from the very beginning, and being thoughtful about those expenses that may be necessary to accomplish your work. And so looking at this slide, here are some suggested categories. Annually, you may need to consider program supplies and staff and fundraising needs. It costs money to write grants. It costs money to ask for dollars to support your work. And whether those expenses are going to be one-time or annual. All right, so we've talked about what's necessary to assess and recalibrate to make sure that we have the right infrastructure and support and thinking in place to accomplish our collaboration. Now let's explore our core strengths. So what are we bringing to the table? So we've talked about all of the things that we need to look at, think about, make sure are in place. But now this is an opportunity to turn the mirror on ourselves and think about our reputation and relationships, the people skills, the data know-how, and our financial strengths within our own organization. NFF uses this approach, call it the complete strengths framework, as a way to really assess the skills and capacities of an organization and really being thoughtful about uncovering not only our own capacity, so what we bring to the table, but what we're hoping to get of value and of benefit from partnering with other agencies and organizations. Understanding our skills and strengths is also a chance to understand the gaps that may exist and how we can use partnerships to really fill some of those gaps and create opportunity for an enhanced value proposition So an enhanced way for us to show up in the world, to expand our impact, to maybe save costs, or to give the freedom and flexibility to mitigate risk. And so as we think about partnership, it's important to think about it completely from our organization's strengths, think about the gaps that may exist and how all the pieces fit together in order for our organization to continue to grow, achieve our mission, and to deploy the right mix of skills, talents, and treasure within our community to advance our mission and make a difference in the lives of the people that we serve. So the first one we'll talk about is people skills, people and skills. So do we have the skills, the knowledge, the abilities of the staff and management to be able to deliver on their mission now and in the future? So as we go through this, you will see partnership questions as an opportunity for you to have another reflection point and pause and think. Think about your current collaborations. Think about what you're hoping to accomplish. Having a strong leadership team that has an analytical mindset, the right program staff available, the right abilities and resources, the right level of communication and transparency internally and externally are all important pieces of this pie. So for your people and skills, do you have access to the knowledge, the skills, the abilities that you need to deliver on your mission now and for the future of the work that you are hoping to accomplish? So as you're thinking about your current and as you're thinking about your aspirational collaborative relationships, do you have what you need? And from a relationship and reputation, we know that the connections with our external community, our funders, our community members, our service providers are incredibly important as we advance our mission. And those collaborations are ways for us to more broadly show up in our sector, show up in our ecosystem. They're opportunities for us to build trust, again, transparency, commitment, and to flex our collaborative muscle in a way that gives us a deepened perspective on the services that we are providing. This is our opportunity to really build our social capital through our external relationships. And so as you're thinking about this, this is another reflection point. Do you have good relationships with the organizations that you are currently partnering with? And is there a match in your existing network? So as you're thinking about new collaborative relationships, who should you be connecting with? Who should you be partnering with? And for the ones that already exist, are those relationships built on trust and transparency? Have you created a culture where these new opportunities will be able to grow and thrive and support your collaboration? Data and know-how. So do you have a culture where you value data, you value qualitative and quantitative ways of capturing and gathering data so that you can enhance your service delivery and decision-making? So we know that good data and information allows us to make really good decisions. And so the quality of data that you collect, the way that you collect it, how you have access to the data allows you to learn and grow in real time. It allows you to create opportunities where you can ask different questions about how maybe people need to be managed, how you measure, the way you interpret it, what impact looks like and feels like, how you think about your systems and the way that you process information. And as you're thinking about your data and thinking about your know-how, consider your current and your prospective partnerships and collaborative relationships. Do you have what you need at the table? Is your goal to serve more people or to go deeper? And how can you partner to add value? You need good data to answer those questions. And so again, another reflection point, I challenge you to pause for a moment and think about, do you have what you need? Are you capturing the data that you need to be able to answer these questions? And finally, your financial strength. So financial capital is measured by the resources your organization is able to raise to be able to deliver quality services and to adapt if need be. So adapt, when we use that word, we're thinking about it from the perspective of being able to grow, adjust, learn. Do you have resources to do that? And how those resources are aligned in a way to deliver and support on your mission now and in the future. So when you were building collaboration, when you think about partnering with other people, remember, we're holding the mirror to ourselves. Do we have organizationally what we need in revenue generated to advance our mission? Do we have the right systems in place to track revenue as it is coming into an organization, but also as it may be generated for a collaborative initiative? And have we generated the right amount of trust and solid relationships with our donors, our community members, reputationally, for us to generate the revenue that we need? So partnership questions to ask yourself: what sort of organizational culture would match and complement yours? And are there additional sets of expertise that you may need at the table? So we've talked about all four of the pieces of the pie for the complete strengths framework: your people and skills, your data and know-how, your relationships, financial. This sheet is an opportunity, again, for you to pause and think. What do you bring to a collaborative relationship? So thinking about all the pieces that we just explored, what do you bring? So what are your strengths and what are your gaps? And what do you need? So as you're thinking about your partners and who should be at the table, what do you need to bring? Where do gaps exist? And taking a moment to ask yourself those questions. It's important to evaluate relationships, particularly when they're good, because sometimes it's really hard to evaluate them when they may not be as healthy as you would like them to be. Here's an example. When you bring it all together and you're assessing your collaboration and you're looking at the gaps and you're looking at the strengths, here's the way to think about it. You could do this internally. You could do it as a collaborative, as a way to team build and build relationship and think about ways to grow and shift and adjust. You can see down at the bottom left, for human capital, having long-standing staff is a strength. Looking for additional experience. What you continue to seek financially. You can see maybe offering strong philanthropic relationships and consistency in your fundraising dollars, and you're looking for organizations who have strong programming. So again, being clear about what you bring and what you need to a collaboration really does help to be clear about what you need, what you're looking for, and where you'd like to go. Here's just a quick recap of what we just talked about and some of the key questions as you are assessing your partnerships. And again, I challenge you, hold the mirror up to yourself first. Ask yourself these questions. And then turn it around and think about it from the perspective of the organizations that you hope to partner with. Do you have a good partner? Is this partner actually being able to do what you need to do? Or is there someone who's better positioned to help and provide support? So these guiding questions really are an opportunity, again, to have an internal conversation and to think through what's necessary and needed so that you can go deeper and wider and work efficiently and effectively. You can manage your relationships in the most appropriate way. You can build a culture that's necessary for you to accomplish your outcomes, where you can ensure that you have the financial support necessary and needed to maximize on the strengths that already exist. And the gaps that you need to fill, you know exactly what you need, and you can create matches within this collaborative relationship. So we've talked about assessing the readiness or recalibrating and figuring out the knowledge, the trust, the risk, and relationship that you were looking for and needing. And we've also talked about assessing our own strengths and our needs and figuring out the gaps that exist for us internally. And then we've talked about turning the mirror on our partners and thinking about and evaluating what we need from them and how can we fill those gaps. So the final piece of this conversation is our value proposition. So if we are clear about what we are hoping to accomplish, we are clear about what we bring to the table, then having a solid value proposition allows us to continue to make the case for a potential partner about why they should be encouraged to work with us, to think about partnering with us. It allows a funder to also see why you are bringing people together and ensuring that you can achieve what you are setting out to achieve. And so being clear about the compelling problem that you and your partner are looking to accomplish is important to state, to identify, and to make clear to your partner agencies and organizations. Being clear about what you are hoping to find as your impact, to achieve and your outcomes, to be clear about your pre-existing relationships and your track record. So why have you been successful? Why are you the right fit? Why are your partners the right partners? Why is it important for people to invest and think about the work that you are doing at this very moment? And why do you have the secret ingredient, the secret sauce? What makes you special? What makes you better? What makes you more equipped? What makes you more knowledgeable? What ensures that you have the right skills, the unique talents and strengths to make a difference in your community? And then what support do you need? So are there additional asks or calls to action? Are there additional capacities that you still need so that you can get the right people to the table, continue to engage partners, continue to engage funders, and look for opportunities to build those resources to accomplish your work? So developing this value system or this value proposition, my apologies, is an opportunity truly for you to tell your story succinctly. This is your elevator pitch for your organization. This is your elevator pitch for why you are a great partner. This is your elevator pitch for your funder, for a donor. So you are clear about what you are solving. You're clear about the work that you are doing and what you are hoping to accomplish. The value proposition truly is an opportunity, and this slide here is for you to be able to ask the questions of yourself and to think about it from your partner lens, and to also think about it from the perspective of why you are coming to the table organizationally. This is another reflection point. And so if you're clear about your strengths, if you're clear that you are ready to partner, if you're clear about the structure, you are clear about your aspirations, your strategies, your vision, and what you are hoping to accomplish. This is the last piece, being able to tell that story about what makes you special, unique, interesting, and an ideal partner. So thank you so much for the opportunity to connect with you today and talk about partnerships and collaboration. I told you this is something that I am super passionate about and excited about. I hope that you are leaving this webinar equally as excited and with some great nuggets for you to reflect and stop and check in and make sure that you are moving in a direction that will affirm the work that needs to happen for your organization to advance its mission, but ultimately for the individuals that we have the pleasure of serving alongside in our community. All of what we do for them. And so I invite you to continue on this learning journey with my colleague, Michael Cass. He will present a workshop on financial leadership for boards on September 16th. So if you have board members who are looking to better serve in their nonprofits and become more versed in financial management and their roles as board members and their governance and fiduciary responsibilities, I invite you to join the webinar. Thank you so much and have a great day.